income look like? Usually on any month it'll be anywhere from 100 to 300K a month profit.
Iman Gadzhi's story is one to remember. How he made it from rags to riches is truly inspirational, and his story has it all: the lowest lows and the highest highs. With a mission that's being out to change the educational system, guiding every decision he makes in life, we need to know all about it. So have you ever wondered how a high school dropout with no money could become a multi-millionaire by the age of 22? Well, you're not alone. Keep watching to learn all about the incredible journey of a young man making it big from $0 to 30 million of them. First, let's talk about how it all started. This young man's story begins in a small town in the southern part of Russia called Ogni. Iman was born there to a single mother. His father, who was an abusive alcoholic, had abandoned to the family long before he was born. That left just the two of them. They both lived in post-Soviet Union poverty. This meant his mother, who also happened to be his best friend and hero, had to work 3 jobs to support him, so he spent the majority of his time with his grandmother. Then things started to change. Iman's mother came home one day and told her son that they were moving to London.
I'm moving to London.
He had no idea what this meant, but soon enough he found himself on his first flight and then in the United Kingdom. This amazing turn of events occurred when his mother married his stepfather. The couple had met in Moscow and had dated for a few months before he decided he wanted her and her son to live with him in London. So, in a short span of just 1 month, everything started to change for the two. They went from not having a restroom in the house to living in one of the city's poshest neighborhoods. Iman ended up attending a prestigious private school and living a life that his mother could not have imagined just a few months ago. Of course, if this were the end of the story, you wouldn't be here. His website wouldn't exist, and Iman would be at college right now, following in the footsteps of all his friends. But this was just the beginning.
Wow, this is just the beginning.
Then the dark days begun. Again. His idyllic childhood began to fade rather quickly. His mother had to leave his stepfather, and the two were kicked back into their old ways of living. His stepfather severed all ties with them and, of course, cut them off completely. This was a step backward for the mother and son, and it meant that Iman must face an enormous burden at the age of 14, caring for himself and his mother. When he moved to London, success became his destiny. He needed it to happen for him. Despite a childhood ambition to become a professional footballer, Iman came to the realization at the age of 15 that he simply wasn't good enough. He needed to find a different way to make money, something he was really good at, and that would pay well. That's when he decided to start a business. So as many of his generation do, he decided to take to Instagram. He started account buying and selling. It also made a pretty good living for a 16-year-old. And then in one poor decision, he ended up losing it all by investing in one profile that failed miserably. Facing failures in anything as a young child isn't easy, but Iman did not stop there, and we're much better off for it. Iman, unyielding, set about trying desperately to discover new ways to earn money. He was obsessed with fitness and would spend countless days and nights studying personal training manuals before badgering the parents of his friends to let him train them. And he managed to succeed in this little mission of his. He made a few £100s per month doing this and truly believed he was a real businessman. So he decided that he'd invest in himself by purchasing his first camera, a 400-pound Canon. He used and abused that thing, getting his entire money's worth. He'd be setting up shoots wherever he could find them and attempting to learn a new craft.
I'm a photographer.
In the meantime, he had yet another idea. He was still playing semi-pro football at the time, and knowing a little bit about social media, he had always voiced concerns to the club's owners about how bad their channels were and how he thought he could do a better job. To his surprise, the owner finally relented. "Okay, Iman, why don't you manage our content and social media?" he said. And before Iman could respond, he asked, "And how much would that cost?" "Wait, what? This could make him money?"
You guys are getting paid?
Iman had absolutely no idea that companies could be charged to manage their social media. In a little disbelief, the young Iman told the club owner that he'd have to get back to him on that, and thus began the research. How much could he make doing this? His brief research had ended up leading him to the grand total of £75 per week. Yes, his first agency client paid him £300 per month. It didn't matter if the first retainer was £1 per month or £300 per month. It gave him the most valuable gift he could have received at the time: hope. It was the first time in Iman's life that he had cash flow and could finally call someone my client, which is something he still finds cool to this day. Who wouldn't? Then came the turning point. It ended up taking him 7 months to land his next client. At that point, most people would have given up and cut their losses, but Iman was smitten. He loved it. He remained constant in his efforts until he was granted an interview with a company called Affleet. When the young man arrived at their snazzy London office, he felt shivers down his spine. By the end of the meeting, the founder, Sean, had requested that he submit a proposal. Now that he finally knew what he could charge and how much other companies charged, he sent the company a quote for £1,900 per month. a figure he decided to throw out with the expectation of negotiating it down to something like £1,000 or so. Iman submitted it while he was actually in his class that he took at school. As he was getting ready for lunch, he checked his email, and Sean had answered back with only 2 words: "Call me." Iman recalls having to sit on the street curb outside the school, his phone acting as a hotspot and his computer in front of him. Sean had gone through some logistical problems before finally saying, "Okay, let's do it." Iman could hardly believe what he was hearing. He dashed into the lunchroom and locked into an embrace with his best friend. The entire hall turned to stare at him, the crazy guy who was screaming and yelling in triumph. This was definitely the defining moment in his agency career. The next couple of weeks were going to be even more insane. He then signed his second client for £1,500, followed by another for £750. He went from £300 per month with the dreadfully low-priced client, who he dropped immediately afterward, to £4,150 per month with 3 clients while still attending high school. And all of this happened in just 14 days. This was the motivation he needed, and he knew it was time to keep a promise he made to himself almost 3 weeks before. Who says high school dropouts can't be successful? Iman had promised himself 3 weeks prior to actually signing a fleet that if he could get sufficient clients on a monthly contract to cover his overhead costs plus rent, which he didn't have to pay for at the time, he would drop out of school. It so happened that he had reached the number he required to drop out after signing a fleet and the 2 other clients all within 14 days. The logistical nightmare of heading to the council, pleading with the school, and figuring out how to drop out at the age of 17 had begun. Iman had made it work after about 2 or 3 weeks and was finally attending his last day of school ever. He hadn't ever felt more anxious or unsure of himself than when he dropped out of school. At such a young age, it's a risky decision not many would be able to make. He recalls walking around the Boltons in London with tears in his eyes, starting to wonder if he was about to throw away the education that his mother had sacrificed her entire life for. Building a real agency. He landed 2 more clients shortly after dropping out: Zebra Fuel and Furo Systems. At this point, Iman had surpassed the 6-figure mark and was practically walking on clouds. That's when everything went downhill. He began to lose clients. He had no way of demonstrating ROI because he was providing social media management and happily reporting on likes and followers. There appeared to be only one way for his clients' businesses to grow demonstratably: through social media. Paid social media traffic. So he spent the next 6 months trying and failing to sell Facebook ad services. He did everything in his power to make it work, including purchasing all of the courses and working with a slew of coaches. It wasn't until he turned on his laptop one day and typed in Expedia to book a surprise vacation for his mother that he discovered Expedia had made $10 billion that year with an extremely lean operation. As he began to read the article, he realized what Expedia's business model was: connect the consumer with the service and wrap it under the Expedia experience. Expedia owned no planes or hotels, but it made more money than the companies that did. That's when it clicked. Iman didn't have to produce the Facebook ad services himself. He could outsource it and concentrate on sales and operations. The best part is that he would pocket the majority of the profits. That's the dream, isn't it? And then above and beyond. Iman was now gaining attention as he documented himself on YouTube and Instagram. The ironic part is that his education company, growyouagency.com, also began by accident. Then one day, Iman ran into a YouTube subscriber who asked him if he could tell him how he built his agency. Iman replied, "Of course," but he insisted on asking, "How much do you charge an hour?" This was all new to Iman. He previously provided services to businesses, but he'd never been consulted on how to grow an agency. That just seemed ridiculous.
Just seems ridiculous to me.
But Iman replied, £100. After only 2 hours of Iman's coaching, that very same student signed his first $1,500 per month client. And this was the start of his new organization, Grow Your Agency, where Iman and his crew taught students how to grow their agencies and run businesses. GrowYourAgency.com has grown to become the world's largest education provider for agency owners. Iman is currently working on his dream to transform the current education system into a much better one. But in keeping with their ethics, Iman invests 10% of GrowYourAgency.com's annual profits in building schools in underdeveloped countries, helping to shape the educational system in the right way. This demonstrates how ethics and values are important in starting a business and being a good entrepreneur. Iman is an example of following one's dreams and making sound decisions. Despite his dark past, he did not use it as an excuse and accomplished what he needed to. And that's all for today's video. If you enjoyed it, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. And until next time, we'll see ya.